We talk a lot about being gluten intolerant and gluten-free, and that's because that's the term that we're most familiar with. But the real problem, at least from the research that I've studied and that I'm familiar with, is actually lectin. And that exists in grains and seeds, and as well as a lot of dairy products.
Hey Tribe, Stephanie Dixon here for Green is the New Black TV, your guide to conscious living in Asia. Today we are going to be talking about healthy snacks and conscious eating and why this is really important for our daily well-being and energy. I'd like to introduce you to Ramya Raghupathy, who is the founder of Oh My Goodness. So let's take it back a little bit. You have come from like the corporate world, then you went into consulting, and now you're a social entrepreneur. So walk us through like why you decided to start your own health manufacturing company.
I started my own health and wellness journey in 2011. Prior to that, I was actually falling ill a lot. I used to have acute rhinitis, acute sinusitis. Eventually, I learned a lot about how food could help me get through that. And around 2013, due to stress, mineral loss, dehydration, I started to lose a lot of my hair. And I went to see a doctor. He basically advised me against the consumption of wheat and dairy and all of that. And this was just as I was about to leave Singapore and move to France for school. When I was in France, and subsequently Germany and the UK, it was really easy to go off wheat and go off dairy. And when I came back to Singapore, I realized that there just weren't any good options here. While I was away, I completely changed up my baking portfolio. I've been baking for 16 years, and I had this amazing chocolate cake that I started making while I was away, and I made it when I came back, and people were basically like, you should sell this here. And I was like, no way, I work at an impact fund, doing business development, never going to be an entrepreneur.
And I know that part of the philosophy is the big three. So you're really focusing on no refined sugar, gluten-free, and also dairy-free.
Correct.
So why were those three important for you, and why did you want to tackle those three?
We talk a lot about being gluten intolerant and gluten-free, and that's because that's the term that we're most familiar with. But the real problem, at least from the research that I've studied and that I'm familiar with, is actually lectin. And that exists in grains and seeds, and as well as a lot of dairy products. Having a product, therefore, that's just gluten-free isn't going to resolve the problem. It needs to be gluten-free and dairy-free. White table sugar is probably the worst thing for you. It just strips your body of minerals. You can't really digest it. It's awful. And when you put the three together, I think we have a much better quality product.
Now you're really looking at something which you're calling conscious manufacturing,
Yes.
which I think is really interesting. So walk us through, unpack that a little bit more.
First of all, it's the way we manufacture. We're what we call a no-waste company. There's a lot of byproduct. There's a lot of stuff that we don't use. And for regulatory reasons, it's very hard to really put some of this to good use. We try and repurpose everything and reuse as much as you can. We don't throw things away that if we can salvage it. And we recycle all the materials that come into our factory. There's tons of packaging, and we do what we can there as well. And the second way we try and be more conscious about the way we work and produce our food is through employment. So we hire two specific groups. We hire ex-offenders, and we hire persons with intellectual disabilities, or PWIDs.
So I want to touch a little bit on the food waste scenario. So maybe you can explain a little bit about how big the problem really is, and sort of more about why this is such a passion for you as well, and why you wanted to really work on being zero waste or working towards less waste.
Even in our day-to-day interactions with our customers, we usually try and talk to them about how to prevent food waste, and we talk a lot about freezing. Customers seem very bothered by this notion of freezing, that it reduces freshness or that it takes away flavor, and it's really, really not true. In fact, for baked goods, it's the best way to preserve the moisture and the flavor, and we teach customers how to wrap your baked goods in 3 layers of cling film, or go get a freezer bag and put it in there.
So how do you think we can get more people to awaken to this idea of conscious eating, and maybe what are some little green steps that our audience can take to be more conscious with their food choices?
I think in terms of conscious eating, I think it's very important that people educate themselves on the language, on the terms that food manufacturing companies use. Not everything that seems healthy really, really is. And it's important to go beyond a superficial glance at packaging. And in terms of little green steps that customers can take, I think get rid of that stigma around freezing. It's such a great way to keep leftovers for a much longer time. It's a great way to keep your baked goods.
So what would Mother Nature say if she could speak?
As cliche as this sounds, stop destroying me, stop stripping me of what I can naturally offer you. A lot of the food allergies we're experiencing now, it's really nothing to do with the food itself. It's got to do with how we are growing this food.
Well, thank you so much for having us and
Stephanie,
joining
for chatting
us.
with us.
Yes, and thank you for watching. I hope you learned something today so that you can live more consciously. And if you're looking for more tips and tricks, you can head over to greenistheNewBlack.asia.